For People magazine, Peter Travers describes this film as high-spirited and hilarious. This movie supplies that special kick you get from movie comedy when laughter bubbles over into bliss. Duncan Wu of Sight and Sound says the narrative has all the frantic intensity of a nightmare, which with its constant shifts of pace and mood works beautifully both as a thriller and as comedy. And to paraphrase Letterboxd user Hi Saishi, spelled H-I-S-A-I-S-H-I, props to the X-Files and this movie for making me want to fuck a member of the goddamn FBI. On this episode of Ruined Childhoods, we decide the fate of Married to the Mob.
Sequel. Reboot. Which one will it be? It's the Ruined Childhoods podcast.
Greetings, Starfighters.
Oh, are you Tony the Tiger?
Yeah, I'm Tony the Tiger.
Oh, delightful.
Tony the Tiger here. 'Cause he's Tony the Tiger.
Married to the Mob on Ruined Childhoods. It's
Hey.
finally, everyone's been waiting for this one. It's finally happening, episode 148.
Welcome to Ruined Childhoods, the final Ruined Childhoods of 2021.
I know, and we are using that time to talk about a movie that time kind of forgot.
Yeah, kind of. It's one of the, it doesn't, and this is something I want to kind of come back to in general about a lot of the summer 1988 movies.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Not a year that I think we talk about much.
No, it's not. And, we can get into it once we start to talk about Married to the Mob.
Yes,
I know
but
you
first,
have some...
first things first. Thank you to everybody who has done their holiday shopping on the Ruined Childhoods store at tpublic.com. We're getting orders left and right. It's fantastic, and everything that you do helps to support the show. It's definitely appreciated.
And please send us pictures.
Yes.
With your newfound holiday happiness, your Ruined Childhoods paraphernalia, be it an OnlyFans t-shirt or a Good Journey.
Yeah, I think our latest order from the time that we're recording this is a "Don't Hassle Me, I'm Vaccinated" t-shirt, which I love. I mean, the what about Bob? Yeah.
I commend the buyer twice over.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so a big thank you to everybody doing that, and you can find a link to that as well as all of our social media stuff in our link tree that's in the episode's description. And also, we've got some news, and the thing is, like, this news came up like 2 weeks ago, right after we recorded the last episode, because we kind of did them quick because Dan was on a little vacay, a well-deserved vacay. Welcome back to the mainland from
Aloha,
Hawaii. So I know that we had recently talked about a new Zorro property that was going to involve a hacker, but allegedly there is this is according to Deadline, Wilmer Valderrama to EP and star in a reimagined Zorro series for Disney branded television. So this is a different one. This is a totally different thing. So
there are so many, and our Zorro episode is in the archives, but there are so many different proposed Zorro projects.
Yeah. So according to A.O. Davis, the president of Disney branded television, we're reimagining this Disney classic as a compelling period piece set in Pueblo de Los Angeles, but told in a very modern telenovela style, with richly drawn contemporary characters and relationships set against the action, drama, suspense, and humor of the original iconic Zorro. Wilmer shares our commitment to reflect the interesting and rich diversity of the human experience, and we look forward to delivering a culturally relevant and entertaining story with definitional characters. I don't really see that word a lot. that will connect with our viewers for generations to come. Wilmer Valderrama,
this is so weird, John. This is so.
How is this
it is
weird?
such the universe. Well, because how often do you say, "Man, I just watched a Wilmer Valderrama movie," and yet here I am saying, "I just watched a Wilmer Valderrama movie the other day." With my daughter, we watched Unaccompanied Minors, the 2006 family holiday comedy directed by Paul Feig, and Wilmer Valderrama is plays one of the main characters in it. And I was thinking, I was kind of thinking about him. I was like, you know what? Like, there's a guy who had some. I know he had some issues, had some problems, some challenges. And I believe some substance abuse issues, to be more specific. And but I'm hoping this means that he's kind of getting back on the horse, figuratively and literally.
Well, the entertainment.
Shit. I did not mean it. Was not referring to heroin. Oh, no, I didn't.
Whoa!
Oh no!
Yikes.
I know
that was a close one.
No. I am glad. I'm hoping he is riding the horse, not chasing the dragon.
Oh, jeepers creepers! We got to get out of this conversation immediately.
Ride off into the sunset on that pony.
Boy.
Yeah, see, here I was thinking, do I say pony? I say no. I'm going to say horse.
No, you went for it. The hard H,
as Jack Slater would say, big mistake.
Big mistake. Yes.
I'm going to share some news with our listeners as well. This is not movie related, other than that in the time and space of a few months from now, I will probably be watching a lot of very silly movies at early morning hours, because my wife and I and our daughter will be welcoming a new baby into the family.
That's right.
Release date expected early April.
Yeah.
So.
I told Dan that if we need to, pump the brakes on the podcast, and he's like, no. I've got my priorities straight.
We are going to plan accordingly.
Yes.
And
this is going to be, a very exciting for all of us. I'm thrilled that I have just another excuse now to go up to Seattle from Portland and hang with an expanding family. So that's exciting.
You'll be an uncle twice over.
This is true. And yeah, you were you thinking about this because you're thinking of, I don't know, the name Wilmer? Is that like kind of being tossed around?
Well, I'm thinking about either Matthew or Modine.
Oh, and on that note, let's talk about Married to the Mob. No, you can only do Matthew or Modine if you have twins like Jiminy Glick.
If we were having twins, first of all, the podcast would probably have end. But also, I would definitely at some point suggest Matthew and Modine as.
Oh my God.
So when we're big Jiminy Glick fans.
I have a list of potential dog names, and I just recently got a puppy, Rufio, and which was not on this list. But if I was to be getting two dogs, the names Matthew and Modine are most certainly on there. But
I would love.
We'll
that.
see.
That's
maybe
amazing.
future dogs. We'll see.
Well, speaking of the actual single person whose name is Matthew Modine, a star of Married to the Mob.
Yeah.
1988, directed by Academy Award-winning director Jonathan Demme.
Mm-hmm.
A follow-up to his somewhat similar in tone, Something Wild from 1986. Right. And up until that point, I want to say he had been known mostly for like concert films. He directed Talking Heads Stop Making Sense. Yeah. And I think that was kind of what he was known for. And then he did these kind of kooky, wacky, like adult comedies.
Right.
And Yeah, why don't you give us a little background here, set up the context.
And actually, I want to come back to what you just said, because I'm assuming this is R-rated.
Yes.
Yeah, this is an R-rated comedy, which is something that like is super rare these days. Maybe it's because they don't work well in like foreign markets or something like that. But like, it was the kind of thing that like, definitely dropped off for a while and then kind of picked back up with, the Judd Apatow kind of cinematic universe a little bit, but it definitely dropped off a little bit.
Yeah, I would say if you think of, contemporary R-rated comedies, especially from the last like 10, 15, even 20 years, most of them, I think, all come back. There's some connection to that Judd Apatow.
All of them have Seth
world.
Rogen in them. That's it.
Seth Rogen is involved somehow. Will Ferrell cameos, and I'm sorry, I have to apologize because here I am like talking about Jonathan Demme, like Married to the Mob was like one of his first movies, and prior to that, he made his directorial debut in 1974 with Caged Heat.
Caged Heat.
You might have seen that on Cinemax late in the evening. And he also directed the film Melvin and Howard, which was a big. I know,
that's
interesting
about
because that's
our grandfather and our father.
Yeah, and it's 90 minutes of kvetching.
Their names are Melvin and Howard. So yeah.
No, it's actually Melvin. It's Howard Hughes is the Howard in question.
Oh, I was making a joke, Dan. I wasn't saying it was
I know you were making. There's a movie made about. Oh, I never knew. No, he did Swing Shift in 1984. With Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn.
Right.
That might have been where they met. And then with Something Wild, pairing up Jeff Daniels and Melanie Griffith.
I've never
almost
seen
said
it.
Melanie Linsky for some reason.
Melanie Linsky would have been a little child, maybe a baby.
Yet had they remade Something Wild, Melanie Linsky actually would have been a good.
She's
noted for the future.
She is in Don't Look Up on Netflix right now. And she's
magnificent. I can't
fantastic.
wait to watch that. My wife will kill me in my sleep if I watch it without her. So
the Something Wild, I've never actually seen it, but I have the poster in like my brain. It's just there.
Yeah, with the upside down, like Jeff Daniels and Melanie Griffith looking up, and I had the soundtrack.
What's on the soundtrack to?
What's on the soundtrack? It's a lot. I mean, it's a lot of like new wave, and there's an instrumental UB40 track on it.
Oh, is that what piqued your interest?
I think it's what drew my attention to it. And then I looked at it and there's like some good Jimmy Cliff on there. And, oh God, there's a great song by, I want to say it's Chris France from the Talking Heads.
Okay.
I know it's like one of the other Talking Heads. And it's a really good song by them. I cannot think of it off the top of my head, but Something Wild, and Married to the Mob also, you definitely get Jonathan Demme's like love of and knowledge of like the new wave music scene.
Gotcha.
It's bookended by New Order's Bizarre Love Triangle.
Oh, okay.
And it's got a lot of like, there's a lot of like reggae in the middle. I want to say there's like some Jimmy Cliff in there. And some, there's like an instrumental that they're playing at the end.
I believe that there's a version of Bizarre Love Triangle on the Married to the Mob soundtrack.
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about Something Wild.
I segued. I did it really smoothly.
So smooth. Didn't even see it.
No.
Didn't even hear
my
it.
transition. It was it was Married to the Mob. You also see his the soundtrack to that also features a lot of those bands that were more considered more like new wave or not exactly mainstream.
Yeah, and it's a really funky, strange movie that and I'm going to synopsize it in a moment, but it's very off kilter. It is not there's some things about it that make it seem almost so strange that it doesn't exist in our universe,
Right. Yeah, it is. And it's funny because it almost is. It's like Jonathan Demme has his like the Jonathan Demme players. You know, we talk about certain actors and directors. Tracy Walter, who I know we've talked about him before. I forget which. You know, he was in Young Guns too. We didn't really talk about him on that episode.
Okay,
but you know, Tracy Walter,
he's
who pops
Mr.
up. He's the
Chicken Lickin'.
He's the chicken lick. He's the pervy manager there.
Yeah. Oh, why don't
Chris Isaac?
Chris Isaac. Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna
awesome Chris Isaac tune on the soundtrack. By the way, plays over the ending credits.
Of course, there is. All right, so let's hear a synopsis for anybody who hasn't seen Married to the Mob. And a friend of mine texted me the other night and said, and asked me, what movie should I watch tonight? And I was just like, what kind of vibe are you feeling? And she was just like, anything. And I was like, I'm going to give you 3 options. And Married to the Mob was one of them. She watched Married to the Mob, loved it, had never even heard of it before, loved it.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So for anybody who hasn't seen it, which is very likely, unless you have found this podcast because we're talking about Married to the Mob, in which case, you know what I'm about to say. All right, here we go. Angela DeMarco thinks she has it all. A house in the burbs, a delightful son, and a charming husband, Frank. But in his circles, he is known as Cucumber, which may allude to how cool he is in his nefarious dealings. But for one waitress named Karen, Cucumber may mean something else, as they're having an affair. What's even more scandalous is that Karen is also Frank's boss, Tony's mistress. And when Tony finds out, the cucumber gets turned into Swiss cheese. Now, Angela is faced with a difficult decision. Does she stay in the burbs with her son and the unwelcome sexual advances of Tony? Or she can get away from the mob entirely and try to start over fresh. Angela chooses the latter. She takes her son and flees to New York, where they land in a tiny apartment with a bathtub in the kitchen. She ends up working at a hair salon across the street where she becomes close friends with the owner. She also forms a relationship with the quirky guy who lives in the building. But what she doesn't know is that he's an FBI agent following her because he believes what many others also believe, that she's in cahoots with Tony. What he doesn't see coming is that they actually fall for each other. And when he finds the truth, that she isn't involved with Tony, they work together to take him down. How is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just going to run down the cast list just a little bit. Angela is played by Michelle Pfeiffer brilliantly.
Yes.
The FBI agent Mike is Matthew Modine. Tony the Tiger Russo is Dean Stockwell. His wife, Connie Russo, is Mercedes Rule. Just like totally killing it. I love how frequently
Mercedes rules.
She does. I love how frequently she comes up on this podcast. We seem to be covering like her entire filmography slowly but surely. And I am.
I mean, probably not even close yet. But
I mean, she's come up more than I would expect for her to come up.
True, yes, and she is such a standout in this. As we're going through the, I'm sorry, did you?
I just wanted to mention that Alec Baldwin plays Cucumber. Oliver Platt is the other FBI agent. Joan Cusack is one of the mob wives. She's a mob wife, right? Yeah.
Rose,
right, and she's amazing.
Yeah. Of course, as always. It's actually interesting because if you think about like breakout years for actors, and I think about 1988, I think about Alec Baldwin and Joan Cusack in this and Working Girl.
I was just gonna say, what year was Working Girl? Was that 88?
Same year.
Oh man,
same year.
Yeah, Joan Cusack is great.
Like
in Working
very
Girl.
Like a similar, almost like they could take place in the same world, even though they're not.
Yeah,
like it's not like it would fit in perfectly if you saw like Angela DeMarco as she's walking, like looking for a job, that she would walk right past Melanie Griffith's character from Working Girl.
Yeah, right. And also this is the year of Beetlejuice, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So Alec Baldwin is definitely pretty busy around this time.
Having a moment.
Yeah.
He's having a moment. And I could point out, so I'd like to point out some other, kind of standouts here.
Sure.
People that you might not know their names, but you would know what they've done. And also the other Jonathan Demme players. We've got Tracy Walter. We've got Charles Napier, who is Angela's hairdresser Ray at the beginning,
Right?
And you'd recognize him from Silence of the Lambs. And also Chris Isaac is in. I think they're in the same scene. In fact, in Silence of the Lambs, Paul Lazar, who plays Tommy. Who's one of Tony the Tiger's henchmen.
Right.
Paul Lazar, you would recognize as one of the entomologists in Silence of the Lambs.
I was gonna say the movie you just said
as well. Yes, and also not a Jonathan Demme player, but Ellen Foley as one of the other mob wives, who you might recognize, not necessarily her face, but her voice, and you would know it if you heard her say the line, "Stop right there."
Oh, okay.
The vocalist singing opposite Meatloaf in Paradise by the Dashboard Light.
Oh, geez. Wow. Okay. All right.
So, yeah, I mean, and also, yeah, Trey Wilson. I love like putting actors together in different things.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, Trey Wilson and Alec Baldwin were in Great Balls of Fire together the next year.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, also, and then calling back to the Jonathan Demme connection to music, you've got David Johansen of the New York Dolls as the priest who does Cucumber's funeral. Oh, yeah. And my God, Grandpa Al Lewis from the Munsters as Tony the Tiger's uncle. I love his casting in it. And, you know, a lot of these actors, they just pop up in one scene, but it's really just always nice to see them because they're so familiar.
Yeah, and I just want to mention that if anybody isn't familiar with David Johansen from his work with the New York Dolls, you might be familiar with him as Buster Poindexter.
Right, yes, of Hot fame. And I want to say also, did I forget that Oliver Platt is also in Working Girl, or am I making that up?
I don't remember him in Working Girl, but
I think he's, Working Girl. He's Lutz.
He's just
like
an employee there at the office or something, maybe.
Yeah, I think he's like he's skeezy somehow in it.
I love Oliver Platt. He's so great.
Love Oliver Platt. Although there were so many scenes watching him in this where I couldn't help thinking of him as Harry Rex in A Time to Kill. And
Sweaty Love.
She did him a lot.
Oh, geez. So good. I love Oliver Platt. So yeah, Married to the Mob, it's so funky. It's very bizarre. There's almost like a cartoonish quality to the mob wives, you know, the way that they surround Angela in the supermarket and kind of to like threaten her. You know, it's just like very silly. It reminded me a little bit of like, not exactly like Heathers, but like I felt like there was a similar style of humor where it was like, you know, taking things out of our world a little bit. And also, you know, of course we have to mention Matthew Modine's like getting dressed rig that he has like on his bed that just like puts his clothes on. It's so funky and strange, and I love it. And he's just like a really doofy, quirky guy. And you know, you look at Matthew Modine's career and it's like really had some like interesting moments in it. And I feel like this is one that should be considered, you know, one of the greats as far as I'm concerned.
Well, and this was his follow-up to, you know, being in Full Metal Jacket.
Right. Yeah.
The year before.
Yeah, which I think I remember, you know, I watched Married to the Mob like a few weeks ago, and I believe I remembered seeing something about how like going from Full Metal Jacket to this was like strange for him because he was still a little like effed up from the experience on that, which is like no surprise.
And I wondered about that. I thought about like, oh, this might be like, this was probably a nice, you know, break. Like, you know, you're filming in New York and it's fun and it's loose and you're, you know, playing opposite Michelle Pfeiffer, who's so magnificent in this. And it is so quirky. I love how the opening credits set it up for that quirkiness because it's got that cartoonish 80s where it's like the logo from the poster. Yeah. And it comes zooming in and then you have all like the machine gun fire and like the titles get shot up. and it is very much like cartoonish. And in fact, Jonathan Demme had said that his goal wasn't to make a movie about organized crime. It was to make a comedy. And I'm looking for the quote. It says, he said, I'm quoting from a Los Angeles Times article from it's archives. This was published originally in 1988, right after Married to the Mob was released. And he said that, it's a gangster picture, but it's an escapist film, not a film about organized crime. When you start talking about real mob activities, illegal dumping of toxic wastes, drug peddling. And then he said, I bet if I'd thought about it too much, I could never have made a comedy. Which makes it actually answers a lot of the questions that I had. Like, for instance, in one scene, Tommy is driving Tony around, and they both get in the car, and I'm like, why does Tony get in the car before Tommy starts it? Why wouldn't he have Tommy get in the car and start the car to make sure it doesn't blow up? And for a while, in fact, just before the rival gangsters showed up, I was like, where are all these are not gangsters that are like living in secret. This is not like The Sopranos.
No.
Where they're really trying to,
they're more like the Dick Tracy villains. They're just like very much out in the open. Everybody knows what they're up to. You can find them real easily.
Yeah. Well, the Dick Tracy villains, they were the only ones who had prune faced or flat top heads. And, can we talk a little bit, by the way, about so we're talking about the casting, and first of all, the casting of Michelle Pfeiffer as a mob wife, I would say is a bit against type. Like totally, at that time, I mean, Cher, of course, Cher had just done Moonstruck, so I doubt she probably would have done it. And also Cher would have been a much better Connie.
Cher would have been
not better than Mercedes
Rule. It would have been great, but yeah, Mercedes Rule.
No. Mercedes Rule is wonderful. Mercedes Rule also has that versatility, and where you can kind of fit her, you can cast her, at pretty much any type of role. But I feel like Michelle Pfeiffer, up to this point, aside from the toughness, I saw a lot of the toughness from Grease 2.
The toughness from Grease 2, and also a little bit of the toughness from Scarface.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, Dean Stockwell as the mob boss is such genius casting, and it wasn't. He wasn't who Jonathan Demme originally had in mind.
Oh yeah.
And then he just he saw a picture of him and he didn't even know who he saw this picture and he was like, who is this? And didn't recognize him as Dean Stockwell. And Dean Stockwell nominated for an Academy Award for his performance here.
Yeah.
And pour one out. I think we lost Dean Stockwell this past year.
I think so, yeah.
And such a wonderful actor. I know most people think of Quantum Leap, but I do. I think probably more so of Blue Velvet and Married to the Mob.
Yeah,
when I think of Dean Stockwell,
he's great. He's fantastic. I love when. So I mentioned in the synopsis the waitress played by Nancy Travis. I think her name was Karen in it, and. Yeah. And this was, right before she got, a little bit more notoriety. I think she was in 3 Men and a Baby, the same year, maybe around there.
Year before. Yeah.
Year before. Okay. And she's fantastic in this. And yeah, she's a waitress at this place that all the mob guys go to. And the guy behind the piano, when he sees Tony walk in, he plays Tony the Tiger. And he's just
oh yeah.
It's fantastic.
In this theme restaurant where you would probably see families eating and he's he's playing entrance music for the mob boss.
Amazing. I love it.
Yeah. There's so much about it that I really like. I love the pace of the movie.
Yeah.
I love the energy of the movie. I love the 80s-ness of the movie. 80s New York, for some reason, it's I watch 80s New York movies and I get nostalgic, not necessarily for actual 80s New York.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So,
you're ruffling some paper around. What do you got?
Oh, I'm ruffling. I had to,
you
took my notes. Manual notes. I have to point out for our brother Scott of New York's Scott's Pizza Tours that when you see the outside of Matthew Modine's apartment, I'm pretty sure he lives down the block from the Grimaldi's by the Brooklyn Bridge. Because he lives right, like he walked out, and I
hope he didn't get rid of that place.
Verbally said, well, I think it's like now an ice cream shop.
Oh no, I'm just saying,
yeah,
you have that rent then now, like that 80s rent now, right in that area. Forget it.
Oh,
You're living large.
Well, I mean, even her apartment with the bathtub in the kitchen.
Yeah, no shit. Ugh.
What would that? I was thinking, but then it was
because what part of town is she in? She's in
the Lower East
Side. That's what I was gonna say. Yeah,
and which I thought that was another interesting thing because I was like, if you're kind of trying to get away from the mob, why would you move so close to Little Italy? But
interesting.
They don't. But if you're not, for audiences who don't know New York, Manhattan geography, there's no signs of, you don't see that Little Italy is like, a few blocks to the north.
Right.
But yeah, there's so many great scenes in this. And
you mentioned the scene with, what's the place called again? Chicken Licken. Yeah, so Chicken Licken. So she's going to apply for a job there because I think she just sees a help wanted sign, and she, the guy who owns the place essentially makes her like strip down and put on this like jacket that they have there, and it's gross. I mean, it's meant to just be funny, but it's it's a gross, uncomfortable scene, and is a great way to set up her wearing this ridiculous jacket as she's kind of like running around and after she storms out of that place. But yeah, I don't know. It adds color to the movie, and it just shows what she's willing to do to, get away from this past of hers and make things right for herself and her son.
Yeah. I mean, it's also not unrealistic.
No, it's not.
Especially for that. For then, but I mean, sadly, even for now, not entirely unrealistic. There's some great scenes. It also it moves so fast. There's not a lot of stalling that happens in moving the plot along.
Yeah,
which I really appreciate about it. One of my gripes, and I've talked about it before, is that movies are just too long now, like 2.5 hour comedies. That's too much. I feel like for a movie to be over 2 hours, there needs to be a really good reason for it. Especially over the 2:15 part. 2:15 I'm kind of good with, but once you get past that, it's like, all right, there's got to be a good reason. Like this has got to be like a Lawrence of Arabia type thing here to make this.
Yeah, I mean, if every scene does something to move the plot forward, then I'm engaged. And it can be as long as it needs to be.
Yeah.
But if there's fluff in there, then,
But it's not like they carry on this like charade of a relationship for a long time. They go out on a date, and the next day she finds out that Matthew Modine is an FBI agent, and they bring her in and they try to get her to work with them. Oh, because Tony gave her all of these gifts that were, of course, stolen goods, on top of all the other stolen goods they had in their house. And then she gives it all away to Goodwill, including the house. So that's how the FBI gets her, is because all these things she donated were stolen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they get her involved. I love the scene, by the way, when they confront her. And one of the touches I really enjoyed about just kind of the character work and the dressings and all that, Trey Wilson, who plays like the FBI, not the FBI director, but like kind of the boss, Modine and Platt's boss, he's wearing a hairpiece. It is not comically obvious,
Right.
but it is like realistically obvious. It's like, yes, that is about the level of hairpiece he could afford. Like it matches the other hair, but you can tell it's a piece.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like there was a lot of attention paid to all the details to make this movie feel just like slightly over the top and strange without it feeling like you're watching something like really dumb. Like it actually works really well. But
then there's some really sharp, like just the dialogue. I love when the FBI is basically extorting her into helping them, and she says, "You're just like the mob."
Yeah.
It's so good, and yet there's also these really great, like what I also appreciate about Demme is that he kind of knows when to throw in the style.
Yeah.
And he knows when Tony kind of puts it all together and he places. I also like that they don't make Tony out to be a complete schmuck.
Yeah.
And he figures out, and he when he sees Modine and he remembers him from running
Jiminy
into
Glick's
him
son?
in. Yes. So Downey. I should refer to him as Agent Downey.
Yeah.
That's the character's name. So, but the scene when he figures it out and you see him, they're like walking into the lobby of the hotel in Miami. And,
right at the end, the sting,
and you see him think about like, where have I seen this guy before? And he's going through all of the different disguises that he's seen Downey in.
Yeah, it's that whole Miami scene at the end is very funny, very clever, and just really entertaining. And the
way it all comes together. And Mercedes Rule again. Mercedes Rule at the airport scene.
Oh my God, she's I like. This is one of those movies where I feel like people can go watch it and should go watch it if you're listening to this. So I don't want to like give too much away, because this is one of those where it's like, you know, I can't imagine too many people would have either seen this or remember it. I don't know if it's one that people are really watching much these days. It is streaming on one of the big streaming platforms.
It's on HBO Max.
It's on HBO Max, yeah. So definitely check it out. It's a real delight.
We'll withhold any more divulgences of plot, because this really is, and this is where we come back to the like kind of the like the summer of 1988. We've talked about our love of the summer of 1987.
Oh yeah, take me back.
Previously.
Take me back.
And I'm excited because I know that in our not too distant future we'll be covering a movie from that summer. So just dropping a little hint here. But we, like 1988 is kind of like 1987. There were like all of these like big like summer movies, whether they were like, you know, really of quality, like a La Bamba, or just kind of like goofy fun, like a Dragnet. Or even Jaws the Revenge. It was still like they were these big movies. And in 1988, it kind of felt a lot more. It was like you had movies like Big, which is a PG rated movie, but arguably probably more, I would say, more for adults.
Yeah.
I feel like as an adult, you get it a lot more with Big. Cocktail was another big movie from the summer of 1988. Of course, we talked about that on the Shawshank Redemption episode. Yeah.
You made us talk about that.
I did. But yeah, so like Cocktail's a big movie from that summer. I mean, Beetlejuice is more of a spring, from the spring. And then you had like Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Was that summer? It was kind of like an oddball summer. Big Top Pee-wee.
Interesting. Yeah.
So it was kind of like a lot of these like kids geared movies that were maybe more for adults. Cause even Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yeah.
I think has a more, I mean, like kids can appreciate it on a certain level, but adults can appreciate it on more levels, especially if you've seen Chinatown.
Yes.
So, and then here you have Married to the Mob and this quirky, this quirky adult R-rated comedy. Mob movies weren't really like huge. I'm trying to think of like big mob movies from the 80s that were like, there's Scarface and Once Upon a Time in America in the early 80s. But you don't really have like Goodfellas comes out in 90.
Right. Yeah.
You don't really have a lot of that, like a lot of those like these mafia movies. So it's not like, you know, not coming out as part of a trend.
Right. What year was My Blue Heaven?
90.
Yeah. So, because that's
remember, it's the sequel to Goodfellas that came out beforehand.
Yes, I know. But I was thinking about how, you know, it's a comedic mob movie, and the only other one I could really think of, aside from like, you know, a Leslie Nielsen Mafia
with Lloyd Bridges.
Lloyd Bridges, yeah. You know, it's like, aside from that, you know, you have My Blue Heaven, and they kind of exist, kind of the same style of comedy where it's kind of like Goofy and Oddball, and Joan Cusack is there, and
I was just gonna say,
yeah, and I feel like they both
slightly like My Blue Heaven is slightly a skewed world.
Well, yeah, I mean, when you have all of the mafia guys who've gone into witness protection ending up in this like part of Florida together and like forming this little community, that's like a really funny, quirky thing that's like probably not based at all in reality, but it's like it works for the comedy of the movie. I mean, who knows, but you know,
as we've discussed on the My Blue Heaven episode, it is definitely more based in reality than we originally thought.
Yeah, right. So anyway, I think that the style of comedy that this exists in is very specific to just like that late 80s, I don't know, mentality. I don't know what it is that like really matched up, and the evolution of kind of how these movies went. You know, you're right. There weren't a lot of mob movies, so to do something like this it wasn't like it was, you know, clinging onto a trend or anything, where it was just like, hey, you know, those mob movies you like watching, well, we're going to do a little spin on it. But they kind of, you know, it did its own thing, and that's what makes it even cooler. And what makes it even cooler than even cooler is that it is a female-based, you know, it's a female-focused movie. You know, it's focusing on this woman who's trying to make a better life for herself, and you know, dodging all of these unwelcomed advances from men, and you know, even though they're
taking control of her life,
and even though she doesn't have a you know, there is a romantic interest, but it's like it doesn't rely on that for it to be a great movie. That's just a thing that happens more or less. And I think that because Matthew Modine's character stands on his own as a fully realized character without needing to have the romantic relationship with Michelle Pfeiffer's character, it definitely, you know, helps this movie stand out as I don't know, a little bit better than it maybe should have been. Like it's, or like that you would think it would be, really. So kudos to Jonathan Demme and the whole crew, all of you. Good job.
Yeah. Hey, good job. Good job.
You
and
did
he
it.
does, by the
You
way.
did it.
And, you know, and speaking of his crew, we talked about the actors involved, but he also worked with the same pair of producers, Kenneth Ut and Edward Saxon, and the cinematographer Tak Fujimoto, who also did Silence of the Lambs, and I want to say the editor Craig McKay also did Silence of the Lambs.
And wow,
yes.
You know, aside from the FBI, how could there be more different movies? You know,
right? Yeah.
If only they had like Matthew Modine and Oliver Platt in the background. You know, just kind of like working a case.
They're just visiting at Quantico.
Yeah.
Well, you know, Clarice is you know, looking at the microfilm.
The microfiche.
Le microfiche.
Yeah. So, Dan. We are on the cusp of 2022. You're given a boatload of cash and they say married to the mob or you get nothing. What do you do?
I remake it.
Okay.
I remake it. Now, I thought about some other things, like, prequel, with Angela and Nick, the early years, but then what are you doing really? Are you remaking it? Are you making a mob movie? Also, the fact that because this movie came before we learned everything we needed to know about the mob from Martin Scorsese movies and Netflix documentaries. You could afford, that would be the one challenge about remaking it, is kind of keeping it without a lot of the realities of the mafia,
right.
And keeping it a comedy. I was thinking and I have some casting ideas, and I'm going to go on a little tiny casting rant about a movie I haven't seen momentarily.
Okay.
I was thinking about a creative team, and it's interesting because the creative team.
Oh, why do I feel like I know what you're going to say? Go on.
I don't. Do you? What do you think I'm going to say?
Why do I have a feeling you're going to start talking about Greta Gerwig, Saoirse Ronan, Timothy Chalamet? Why are your eyes bulging?
You are, because 1 out of 3 ain't bad.
Okay.
Greta Gerwig was definitely. I was like, Greta Gerwig could really make this movie well, and Greta Gerwig could also play Angela really well if she wanted to. I did not have any. I thought about Timothy Chalamet, but he's not there yet for me.
He's just too young.
But I was thinking about, exactly. I was thinking about Greta Gerwig. I also thought about Michael Showalter as a director and Thomas Lennon and Robert Ben Garant as screenwriters.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Because that would be fun. And I think Michael Showalter could get not necessarily not duplicate Jonathan Demme's style, but bring he's not exactly a paint by numbers filmmaker.
No.
And Michael Showalter movies, especially something more like The Baxter.
Right. Just kind of going, well, he just recently did The Eyes of Tammy Faye, which is really great.
I keep forgetting he did that.
Also,
which is interesting.
Yeah, he did My Name is Doris with Sally Field.
I know he did The Big Sick.
He did The Big Sick. That's right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Probably the most kind of main, just kind of standard. It's a great movie, but so I was thinking, and then in terms of casting, I had some I had some ideas, and I'm actually going to start with Tony.
Sorry, are you talking now about which director are you talking about with the casting?
Either.
Okay, go on.
Either. So first of all right, I was thinking about, I basically thought about 4 characters: Angela, Downey, Tony, and Connie.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, God damn, I would love to see Oscar Isaac as Tony and Jessica Chastain as Connie.
Okay.
And put them together again. And then as I was thinking about that,
who just worked with Michael Showalter, all right?
And who also just worked with Oscar Isaac.
I mean, she and Oscar Isaac,
Yeah. So I was thinking about that.
There.
And then there's my rant, because I have yet to watch Being the Ricardos, but yet I have opinions on it, mostly that Oscar Isaac and Jessica Chastain would have been perfect.
Yeah, they would have been fantastic.
So I thought about them. And then my other idea for Connie was Cecily Strong.
Okay.
Sure. Of SNL fame.
Yeah.
I think about some of her characters, especially her Janine Pirro on SNL, and I was like, she'd be a really interesting Connie. And thinking in terms of Tony, and thinking in terms of non-traditional casting, kind of like Dean Stockwell, I thought Benedict Cumberbatch would be serious actor, but the guy can have fun, and the guy he's fun. He can be a lot of fun to watch. Now, of course, maybe coincidentally, one of my Downies is Jesse Plemons. Because I thought to myself, I was like, as I was doing my casting, I was like, wow, we could bring out the all-stars here.
The all-stars.
And have Jesse Plemons. I mean, why not Timothy Olyphant as Tony the Tiger?
Oh my God, he'd be so good.
But I was like, we could get Oscar Isaac and Jesse Plemons in there. I had a couple of other thoughts for Downey, and those were I thought Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I don't know if he would actually be too old.
Isn't that weird that we've gotten to that point?
Yeah, I know. It's incredibly weird. I was thinking about him. I thought a little bit about Jonah Hill as well.
Well, okay, so for Joseph Gordon-Levitt, he recently did that Apple TV show called Mr. Corman, I believe.
Yo Teach?
Not Yo Teach, Mr. Corman. And it's definitely, I mean, it is not a flat out, it has funny elements to it, but it is about like depression and yeah. So, but he definitely, I mean, he's mid to late 30s. At least like he plays younger than I think he actually is.
I think he'd make a pretty good Downey.
I don't know if
I would prefer Jesse Plemons.
If he'd be able to be like, well, he doesn't have to be goofy the way that Matthew Modine was goofy.
No,
though. Yeah. So
no, he doesn't have to be, and he doesn't have to be, lanky and
right.
If you're trying to do something a little different from Matthew Modine, but kind of still get the energy of that character. That was why I thought Jesse Plemons.
Yeah,
he does that type of thing so well. And my two thoughts for Angela, I already mentioned Greta Gerwig. I also thought Scarlett Johansson would be fantastic. I thought she'd make a really good Angela.
So I want to circle back. I just made a circle with my hand to
that
what
you did
to when you were talking about Michael Showalter directing, Robert Bangarant and Thomas Lennon writing. And all I could think was for Tony the Tiger, Ken Marino, and for Connie, Carrie Kenny, and maybe some newcomers for Angela and Matthew Modine's character. But I was just thinking, like, if you're gonna really go really
Paul
dig
Rudd
in there,
is Nick, or
Paul Rudd.
Paul Rudd.
Paul Rudd could definitely be in there. He could even just be Cucumber, like.
That's what I was saying. Nick DeMarco. Yeah,
I thought it was
Frank. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yes.
Anyway, you can
Ken
really
Marino.
get into that whole
Jeez.
group. Have like Jolo Trulio as the Oliver Platt character. Yes, the look on your face is exactly right. You are loving it.
Or Joe Latrulio as Tommy.
Joe Latrulio as like anybody.
Joe Latrulio just in the movie.
God, he's amazing. Yeah. So anyway, you could do a lot with that specific crew. By the way, I also just want to mention that I haven't seen it yet, but the new Reno 911 movie where they take on QAnon is
on. That's going to be on Paramount. Is it on?
I don't know. I don't know if it is.
Right?
I don't know if it is, but it's I think Paramount Plus. But it's like I need to somehow get a trial or something for that one. Yeah, because I will do that just for that one, because what a great concept. For a way to bring that cast of characters together is for them to be searching for QAnon.
I mean, I love Reno 911. I definitely went to see the movie when it came out.
Yeah, ridiculous. Oh, God,
and watched it a
good.
few times since.
Yeah. They just have such a wonderful sensibility, and I just really appreciate what they've brought into the world and continue
I love
to
that
bring
they're
into the
still
world.
doing it.
Oh God, it's so funny
that they're still doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. So Dan, I definitely had. I was thinking remake too, because this is one where it's like, you're not going to be ruining anybody's childhood if you remade Married to the Mob. And No,
but what a cool childhood you'd be ruining.
I know, right? Where somebody's like, oh man, Married to the Mob, that was my jam. You're not going to ruin this one. And it's interesting because I was really trying to think about, because it's all about the casting and the direction. And, I was thinking Paul Feig. It's funny you mentioned him earlier, because I was thinking he has that, silly sensibility, but can also get shit done and make things feel bigger, which I think that Married to the Mob, 1988, it feels very isolated. It feel like I don't know what the difference is now, but movies now, they just feel a little bit more grand. But I feel like this New York City that she's living in I don't know if it's intentionally made to feel like a little bit more closed in, but I get that feeling like anywhere that she's, in New
Oh,
York.
oh yeah.
Yeah. So
I mean, just the Lower East Side is. I mean, that's
Yeah.
like the tenements and
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So I don't know. I was thinking that Paul Feig would be really cool for that, and I wasn't really thinking too much about cast. I was really thinking more about the director for this one. And it's interesting because you mentioned that, these directors have their cast of characters, their actors that they use a lot. And same thing goes, when trying to think about if we're going to be remaking a movie, what director and like who comes with them. And luckily we have, with Paul Feig, who's done so much lately, you have people like Kate McKinnon, who would be like a really, I don't know if she'd be an Angela per se, but like she could be a really fascinating,
Connie.
she could be really fascinating Connie. Exactly. You have, clearly Kristen Wiig and Melissa McCarthy and all them, but like, you have all these awesome people. Like you have John Hamm, who would be a great Tony the Tiger.
I don't know if like I think of Bridesmaids and Rose Byrne in that. Rose Byrne potentially could do Angela.
She could. I feel like
I'm not as excited about her as other ideas.
Well, that's the thing is I feel like Angela would be really good as kind of like a fresher face person. Somebody who's, maybe a little newer to the scene.
Newer to the scene in general, or newer to the Paul Feig?
Oh no, just to the scene in general. I think that because I was thinking about the new West Side Story, which I liked. I thought it was great. And one of the things I really liked about it was that most of the cast I had not really seen before. And so it felt like I was definitely in it more because I wasn't thinking about that person in another movie or anything. You had Ansel Elgort, who's, I see him, I think Baby Driver. And, aside from him and like Rita Moreno, like there's all these people who I just was not familiar with. And it made it really exciting to watch because I wasn't associating them with anything else. So I think that for the role of Angela, it would benefit for there to be somebody who's kind of a newer face on the scene. And I just am not as keen on those types of people. Yeah.
A Camila Cabello,
sure.
if you will.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I feel like I need to brush up more on like some of the newer talents.
Female actresses.
Google it.
Yeah.
Exactly. So anyway, I just agree with you. A remake feels like the right move. It would be silly to do a sequel or a prequel for a movie that, has kind of gotten lost in the shuffle a little bit, maybe wrongfully so. And I don't know. Watch Married to the Mob.
I kind of just want like a return to movies like this.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It felt like there were moments where I just like I enjoyed like the picture, like I enjoy the quality of the picture.
Absolutely, yeah. One other thought that I had was to kind of do a like 21 Jump Street presents Married to the Mob kind of a situation where it's it's Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum, and I wouldn't want to take the focus away from the female focus. I wouldn't want to take the focus away from the female focus from, like the female centered movie. But, that was just one thought that crossed my mind at one point. But anyway.
Yeah. Oh, you know what it was? The performance that stuck into my head that made me think, man, Scarlett Johansson would nail this is Hail Caesar, her work in Hail Caesar.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Made me think, oh yeah, she could do this. I was trying to, there were a few other names that crossed my mind, but her and then Greta Gerwig being the other.
I'd love to see Greta Gerwig do something like this.
It's like, this would be fun. That would be something fun to see her doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Dan, any final thoughts, or shall we move it on to the next episode?
Yeah. So for our for our first batch of episodes in 2022, we are welcoming you to January, celebrating the films of Jan de Bont that we have not already celebrated.
Yes.
Which would be Speed.
Yes. Director of a few films, but mostly cinematographer. I'm not going to mention the films that he hasn't done because I want to leave it as a surprise, but you've seen his work. You have seen his work.
And in fact, we are going to be, kicking off January with a film that he did not direct, but was the cinematographer for, and that would be 1992's. We're going to heat up your winter with Basic Instinct. Sharon Stone. I don't know why I'm going to Jiminy Glick. I have no idea. Sharon Stone, Michael Douglas, George Dzunza, and Gene Triplehorn.
Yeah, Gene Triplehorn. Great in this one. I am really...
Yeah, in the film, directed by Paul Verhoeven.
Yes. Definitely directed by Paul Verhoeven.
Yes.
Definitely.
Who has a new movie out these days. I don't know that I will be watching it. Yeah, Benedetto, I believe.
Oh, okay.
I think it's also known as the Lesbian Nun movie.
Paul Verhoeven.
Yeah, oh, now you know what I'm talking about. Or it just makes sense that it's Paul Verhoeven.
It just makes sense. It's Paul Verhoeven.
Yeah. So we're going to take a look at, we're going to do Basic Instinct.
Yeah. Send us over an email, ruinchildhoodspot@gmail.com. Check out that link tree, buy some merch, follow us on social media.
Send us your pictures, please.
That'd be great. Or tag us if you post them online.
Well, flaunt that shit.
Dan, while you are fleeing from Tony the Tiger inside the bathtub in your kitchen, I wish you a good journey.
Good journey.